The radio hissed with tension, voices strained and urgent. As command delivered its final verdict, the area was now a kill zone. No rescue mission would be sent. 7 soldiers stranded beyond the wire were effectively written off. Everyone accepted the decision, everyone. Except her. The quiet voice behind the communications desk, the one no one ever really noticed rose from her post without a word. Her name was Staff Sergeant Maya Rodriguez, the base's sole female specialist. She slipped into an unused Humvee and drove straight into the heart of the chaos. What happened next would rewrite the story of what it meant to follow orders, and when to break them. Morning sunlight poured over Forward Operating Base Echo as Maya adjusted her headset, her fingers gliding over the radio console like a pianist. Dust clung to every surface. The metal panels, her camo uniform, even the half-drunk coffee cooling by her elbow. She was deep in routine. Radio checks, coordinates, frequency logs. This was her battlefield, and she knew it better than anyone. 6. This is Echo. Please confirm grid coordinates for air support, she said, her voice firm and focused. Outside, the base stirred with its usual rhythm. Troops moved with purpose. Convoys kicked up clouds of dirt, and far off, the Afghan mountains loomed silent, ancient, and indifferent. A group of officers passed by her workstation, talking briskly about the day's operation. On one of her monitors, Maya spotted a weather pattern, forming winds increasing. Visibility dropping fast. A sandstorm was brewing right where a recon team was about to be deployed. Sir, she called out to Major Collins, gesturing toward the display. Developing weather system in Sector 4 might affect visuals for the op. He barely slowed. One glance at the screen, a nod that dismissed more than it acknowledged. Thanks, Rodriguez. We'll keep an eye on it. Then, he was gone. It wasn't new. 6 months at Echo had taught her that even when she had the facts, her warnings rarely traveled up the chain. Being right didn't always matter, being heard did, and rank determined whose voice got noticed a little later. Captain Walker appeared by her station, one of the few officers who treated her like more than a background process. That alternate route yesterday, he said, leaning on her console. Avoided an ambush. You've probably saved my whole squad. Maya gave a modest nod. Just doing what I'm trained to do. Well, what you're trained to do kept us breathing, he said with a smile. Don't sell yourself short. She felt a flicker of pride. Captain Walker's squad was headed out again today. Again today, another patrol outside the wire. Another gamble with fate. She already had their frequencies memorized. She always did. Be careful out there, she said, as he walked away. Always, he replied. The rest of the morning passed in a hum of routine. She arranged a supply drop, managed 3 patrol communications, and monitored 12 field units. During her quick lunch, she studied updated maps and weather data. That storm, it wasn't fading. It was growing faster than forecasted, pushing directly toward Walker's patrol zone. Returning to her station, she issued updated weather alerts, stressing the danger to Walker's team. His confirmation came back, but radio interference had already begun to creep in. 3 hours later, the emergency hit. Echo Base, Mayday. We're under fire. We've got multiple wounded. Walker's voice pierced the static, punctuated by bursts of gunfire. Maya instantly alerted command. Within minutes, the room was filled with brass, all eyes on her as she relayed the desperate transmissions. Walker's squad had hit an IED, entering an abandoned village, then walked into an ambush. They were outgunned and 3 soldiers were critically wounded. Enemy forces were converging, and the storm was now choking visibility. Air support was grounded. Ground rescue risked more lives. Colonel Matthews stared at the screen, grim. That's outside our perimeter, he muttered, and visibility's near zero. Air units can't get through that storm, confirmed one officer. Ground teams would face 3-1 opposition. Maya kept the connection open as Walker's reports grew more dire. Echo Base, we're taking heavy fire. Lambert and Diaz are down. Johnson's barely holding on. Colonel Matthews approached her console. Sergeant Rodriguez, he said, already resigned. Notify them. That zone's been No extraction. We'll revisit once the storm passes. She stared at him, stunned. Sir, they won't last that long. I know. But I'm not sending more men into a death trap, he said flatly. The room emptied. Only Maya remained, staring at her equipment. Hearing the chaos unfolding beyond the wire in real time, she took a steadying breath. Forcing her voice, calm. Captain Walker, this is Echo Base, she said. Command states extraction is not feasible at this time due to storm activity and enemy presence. The area has been reclassified. There was a pause. Say again, Echo. Walker's voice was laced with disbelief. No rescue authorized, she said, every word weighing heavy. Your zone is now designated, ... a kill zone. The line crackled. Understood, came the reply, quiet and tight. We'll hold. What we can. If anything changes, tell command, we'll take a miracle. Walker out. She lowered her headset. Then she stood. Asterisk. Maya sat frozen at her console, the full weight of what she'd just heard pressing down on her chest. 7 soldiers abandoned. Men whose voices she recognized instantly. Men she spoke to every day. She'd seen their families smiling in photographs, pinned up on their walls, shared through the coms. Even now, their voices echoed through her headset fragmented updates. The urgency rising with every passing second. Diaz isn't looking good, she heard Walker's strained voice report. Keep pressure on that wound. Jackson, conserve ammo, single shots only. Then came a whispered plea, likely meant for a different channel. Anyone. We've got 3 critical, we won't make it without help. Through the wide windows of the comm center, Maya spotted mechanics wrapping up work on a Humvee. The vehicle, fully refueled and freshly serviced, sat idle. The crew had just headed off for a late lunch, leaving the keys in the ignition. She looked at the vehicle, then back at her radio. A mental map formed instantly in her mind. She knew this region like the back of her hand. Better than most of the soldiers, from months of monitoring patrols and analyzing terrain. She knew which roads were likely mined, which paths offered cover, and where the enemy usually kept watch. Her eyes flicked to the emergency supply cabinet in the corner, always stocked, then to the sidearm in her locker. Regulations required all base personnel to carry one, but most of the comms team never did. Maya's pulse quickened as she adjusted her headset and transmitted on a discrete frequency. Captain Walker, she said, voice low, calm. Hold your position. Help is on the way. Logging out of her terminal, she informed the junior operator she was stepping out for a break. Then she walked out of the building, every movement steady and deliberate. The wind had picked up outside early, signs of a coming sandstorm. Perfect. She walked briskly to the Humvee, her brain spinning through a checklist. The logical voice in her head screamed about regulations, about the consequences, court-martial, at the very least, but louder than that was Walker's broken voice. We've got 3 critical. She hadn't signed up for this, to sit safely behind glass while good men died in the dirt. Before a battlefield injury had reassigned her, Maya had been a combat medicand, a damn good one. That part of her hadn't gone away. She stopped first at the supply shed, slung a medical pack over her shoulder, then moved to her locker for the sidearm. It felt foreign on her hip, but her hands handled it as if she'd never stopped carrying it. At the Humvee, she quickly disabled the tracking units, something all comms personnel were trained to do. The irony was cruel. The very people meant to monitor the base's vehicles knew exactly how to erase one from the system. She slid behind the wheel, heart hammering. The engine turned over smoothly. There was still time to walk away, to abandon this reckless idea. But then the memory returned, Walker's whisper, that desperate edge. We won't make it without help. Maya shifted the vehicle into gear, and drove slowly toward the eastern gate. Timing was critical. She knew the shift rotations like a watchmaker. This was the window. During the handover, security's attention would be split. She approached the gate at a relaxed speed, posture composed. One guard gave her a casual wave through, assuming it was a routine assignment. No alarms, no questions. No one expected danger to leave the base. All eyes were always on what might come in. Once clear of the wire, Maya pressed the accelerator, driving straight into the swirling storm. Dust and grit pelted the windshield, visibility already dropping fast, conditions that had grounded the official rescue team. Exactly why no one else was coming, but she was. Her thoughts raced as she maneuvered across hostile terrain. Memories returned her time in training, the first life she'd saved under fire, the moment her career path had shifted. They'd told her communications was still service, still saving lives, but no one ever said she couldn't do both. The region ahead had been declared a kill zone. Dilapidated buildings stood like ghosts in the sand, ideal spots for ambushes. Maya kept 2 backpaths, using the terrain for cover. She barely touched the radio, listening only for signs that her absence had been noticed. So far, nothing. 20 minutes in, the sharp report of gunfire cracked the air to her right. She took a sharp turn, swerving onto a less direct route. The sound of a firefight grew louder as she neared the small village where the squad had been. Trapped. She recognized the distinct fire patterns, American rifles firing back in desperation. As the first buildings of the village came into view, the destruction was clear. Rubble, smoke, crater signs of RPG impacts and sustained combat. She pulled the Humvee behind a crumbling wall, cutting the engine. Static buzzed from the onboard. Radio Wolfpack, actual, this is Echo Base Rodriguez. I'm outside the southern edge of the village. What's your location? There was a long pause. Then, Rodriguez. What the how the hell no, time to explain, she interrupted. I need your coordinates. Second, building on the east side of the square. 2 stories. Roofs partially collapsed. We've got 3 in bad shape. 4 more that can walk, ammo's running low. Hold position, I'm on my way. Grabbing her gear, Maya exited the vehicle and surveyed the field. Gunfire focused toward the north. She'd use that to her advantage. Crouching low, she darted from structure to structure, carefully navigating through debris and shadows. A rooftop sniper glanced in her direction. She froze, pressing herself against a wall, breath shallow, until he turned away. Reaching the battered building, she slipped inside. 7 faces turned toward her, wide-eyed. Rodriguez. Walker's face was a mess of grime and blood. A makeshift bandage wrapped around his arm. "How borrowed a ride," she said, already kneeling beside Diaz, who lay deathly pale. Blood seeping through hasty bandages across his stomach and thigh. "Let me stabilize him." "Did command send you?" another soldier asked, voice full of hope. Maya didn't answer. She was already opening the medkit. They didn't need permission. They needed saving. Maya didn't look up from treating Diaz's injuries. "I deployed myself," she said flatly. Walker's face shifted, first surprise, then understanding. "You ignored a direct order." "I interpreted it creatively," she replied, applying a clotting agent to Diaz's wound. "They said no air support, no extraction team. They never said anything about one Comstech and a Humvee." A faint smile tugged at Walker's lips. "Remind me to buy you a drink if we get through this." When Maya corrected firmly, moving to her next patient. Private Lambert had a chest injury, but luckily his lung hadn't been punctured. She reinforced his bandages and gave him morphine. "I didn't come all this way just to fail now." The third urgent case was Corporal Johnson, compound femur fracture and heavy blood loss. Maya quickly crafted a makeshift splint and hooked him to an IV from the supplies she'd hauled in. "These 3 need evacuation immediately," she told Walker once her triage was complete. "The Humvee can hold 5 total. I'll take them back, then return for the rest." "That's a death wish," Walker said. "You made it once, but a second time. That's gambling with your life." "I'm not abandoning anyone," Maya said with quiet steel. "But if we wait, those 3 won't last an hour." Suddenly, a blast rattled the building, sending dust and debris falling from what remained of the roof. The enemy was getting closer. "We've got maybe 10 minutes before they overrun us," a soldier reported from a broken window. "Then we go now," Maya ordered. "Captain, Can your walking wounded help carry the others? Walker gave a quick nod and began barking orders. As his troops prepared to move, he pulled Maya aside. Why? He asked. Why risk your rank, your future, everything? She checked her sidearm, her voice low but unwavering. Because it was the right thing to do. Because I couldn't sit there listening to you die when I knew I could make a difference. Command will come down hard on you. Then I'll accept that, knowing it saved lives. I'll make that trade any day. The dash to the Humvee was a blur urgency and calculated motion. Maya went first, checking the path ahead. 2 soldiers carried each stretcher while Walker provided rear cover. By some miracle, they reached the vehicle unchallenged. The storm masking their movements. I'll be back in half an hour, Maya said as they loaded the critical and 2 stable casualties into the Humvee. Walker's expression was grim. We might not be here in 30. They're closing in from every direction. Then I'll find you, she said, with a conviction she didn't entirely feel. Stay alive, Captain. That's an order. The return drive was brutal. Maya pushed the Humvee hard, eyes darting between the road and the storm-swept terrain. Twice, she had to reroute to avoid suspected ambush zones. The wounded remained mostly silent, save for occasional groans as the vehicle jostled over rough ground. Hold on, Diaz, she urged when she noticed his breathing faltering. We're almost home. At last, the silhouette of FOB Echo appeared. Through the haze, Maya reached for the radio. Echo Base. This is Sergeant Rodriguez approaching Southgate with casualties from Wolfpack Squad. Need med team ready. A crackle, then a confused response. Rodriguez, confirm location and status. 2 minutes out, Humvee, 3 critical, 2 stable, have medics waiting, and Syme going back for the rest. She didn't linger for replies or orders to stand down. As she neared the base, she could already see medics rushing to the gate, alerted by her transmission. The guards, rifles raised, relaxed as they recognized the battered Humvee. The gates opened. Maya rolled through, stopping directly in front of the medical team forming up. 3. Urgent. 2 stable, she reported crisply, as medics swarmed the vehicle. Diaz abdominal wound and leg injury. Lambert shrapnel, right chest. Fracture, major blood loss. A doctor stared at her, eyes wide as he registered who she was, just the communications tech, now coated in blood and dirt. Rodriguez, what the hell? No time, she cut him off, glancing at the fuel gauge. Half a tank left, just enough. Captain Walker and 2 more are still out there, she said. Already climbing back into the driver's seat. Through the gathering crowd, Colonel Matthews emerged, his expression stricken just as Maya threw the Humvee into gear. Asterisk, asterisk, thunder cracked above as Staff Sergeant Rodriguez stood her ground. Stand down immediately, the colonel barked. Maya didn't flinch. Sir, with all due respect, 3 soldiers are still out there. I know where they are and how to reach them. Every second we wait puts their lives further at risk. Defied a direct order and endangered this base. Colonel Matthews snapped. Yes, sir, she answered calmly. And I also saved 5 men who would be dead if I hadn't acted. I intend to bring the rest home. Before Matthews could erupt in full fury, a medic nearby called out, Sir, Diaz is stabilizing. Another 30 minutes and he'd have bled out. The colonel looked from the injured men to Maya. Conflict twisted in his features, torn between protocol and the glaring truth. Soldiers were now gathering, drawn by the tension. Behind them, medics worked feverishly on the wounded Maya had brought in. Maya could see the war playing out in Matthews' mind orders, versus the principle of leaving no one behind. Sir, she said, voice level, despite her pounding heart, I request permission to complete the extraction. I know exactly where they are. I can get them out. Before Matthews could reply, another voice cut through the moment like a blade. Let her go. The crowd shifted as General Harrison stepped forward, his expression unreadable. Sir. Matthews turned, clearly stunned. I said let her go, the general repeated firmly. Every minute we argue is another minute they might not have. Maya didn't wait. She grabbed fresh supplies and ammo from the watching troops as medics loaded the wounded into stretchers, clearing the Humvee. Harrison called after her as she climbed into the vehicle. "Rodriguez," he said, "bring them home." "Yes, sir," she answered. Then gunned the engine and disappeared once more into the storm. As she drove through the gates, a strange peace settled over her. Whatever consequences awaited demotion, court-martial were she, had already saved 5 lives. If she could save 3 more, it would be worth everything. The storm had worsened. Visibility was barely a few feet. Maya steered the Humvee from memory, navigating treacherous ground that seemed determined to bury her. Twice she had to double back to avoid enemy patrols. The storm hit her, but it also cloaked danger. As she neared the village, something felt off. The rhythm of gunfire had shifted, coming from unpredictable directions. She keyed her radio. "Captain Walker, this is Rodriguez. Approaching from the south. Confirm location." A burst of static. Then, Walker's voice strained, barely audible. "Rodriguez, building compromised. We had to move, northern edge. Stone structure, it's bad." Her stomach dropped. The northern edge was crawling with fighters. Getting there would be hell. "Understood. 88.5 minutes. Hold on." She left the Humvee where it had been hidden before, and prepared to continue on foot. The enemy would be watching for vehicles now. Slipping into the shadows, she gripped her sidearm and medical kit, then advanced. The village was chaos storm. Smoke and danger at every step. Gunfire forced her flat several times. Once, 2 enemy fighters passed just feet from her hiding place. Their whispers in Pashto betrayed their urgency. From what Maya could piece together, they were closing in, expecting wounded prey. She moved when they passed. Navigating the ruined village like a ghost, at the northern structure a battered stone building, she nearly ran into a crouched figure. Her hand flew to her pistol. Rodriguez came a hushed voice. "Specialist Torres." He lowered his rifle, eyes wide. "You actually came back." "I said I would," she replied quietly. "Status. Captain's down. Took a bullet during retreat." Inside, Walker sat propped against a wall, face pale with pain. His thigh was wrapped, but the cloth was soaked red. "Almost hit the artery," Maya muttered after a quick check. "You're lucky." Walker managed a weak grin. "I never make things easy." She worked fast. Fresh bandage, pain meds. "Can you move if I help?" "If the choice is dying here, yeah, I can move." The Humvee's 300 yards south. Hostiles are scattered, but alert. "We have decent cover, thanks to the storm." "Patrols circling," Jenkins reported from the window. "I count 12. They know we're still here." Maya finished up and helped Walker to his feet. "Torres, you lead. Jenkins, cover the rear. We move fast and quiet. This is our shot." The soldiers nodded, fear in their eyes, but resolve. Deeper still, they knew this might be their one chance to make it back. The escape was grueling. Stop and go chaos. They ducked into ruined buildings, melted into shadows. Jenkins's warnings saved them twice from walking into patrols by the time they reached the Humvee. Maya was soaked in sweat, her heart hammering in her chest. She helped Walker into the back. Torres slid into the front seat, rifle ready. "Everyone in?" she asked, slamming the door. "Then let's get the hell out of here." She floored the gas, leaving the ruins and the storm behind. Shouts erupted behind them. They had been seen. Bullets rang out, clanging against the Humvee's armored shell as Maya pushed the vehicle to its limits across the rugged terrain. "Torres, can you reach the base?" she shouted over her shoulder. "Tell them we're coming in fast." Torres grabbed for the radio, but before he could speak, a blast shook the vehicle. An RPG had detonated just off their left side, throwing the Humvee violently off balance. Maya gripped the wheel, wrestling the vehicle back on course as gunfire intensified around them. "Jenkins, you okay?" she yelled, eyes locked on the uneven path ahead. "Still breathing," came the strained reply. "Captain's holding on." The next moments bled together, adrenaline and instinct guiding Maya through chaos. past debris, and through a torrential downpour of gunfire. Torres finally reached someone on the coms, his voice steady despite everything. Echo Base. This is Wolfpack 3. We're inbound with Sergeant Rodriguez. Captain Walker's injured but stable. Requesting immediate medical at Southgate and potential fire cover if hostiles follow. The base answered quickly. Roger, Wolfpack, medics standing by. QRF en route to Southgate for support. As FOB Echo came into view, Maya saw soldiers assembling. The quick reaction team moved into position, ready to cover their entrance. Their pursuers had fallen behind, unable to keep pace across the open field. Passing through the gates brought a wave of relief and sudden fatigue. Her limbs felt like lead. Medics swarmed the vehicle, carefully lifting Walker out and checking Torres and Jenkins for wounds. Someone pulled open Maya's door, offering a hand, but her knees buckled the moment she tried to stand. Easy, Sergeant, a medic said, steadying her. You might be in shock. I'm fine, she muttered, allowing herself to be guided to a nearby bench. Just take care of them. The base buzzed around her with controlled urgency. Soldiers and medical staff moved with purpose. In the distance, Colonel Matthews stood speaking to General Harrison. Both men glanced in her direction. Captain Walker was being loaded onto a stretcher. As they wheeled him past, he reached out and grabbed Maya's hand. You pulled it off, he said, voice soft but resolute. Thank you. Maya gave a silent nod, emotions tightening in her chest. All 7 of them were alive, despite every warning, every regulation, every rational voice telling her to stand down. She had done what no one else dared, but the moment didn't last. Colonel Matthews was striding toward her, face unreadable, the general close behind. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, Matthews began stiffly. You disobeyed direct commands, abandoned your post, seized military property without authorization, and entered a restricted combat zone after being explicitly ordered not to. What do you have to say for yourself? Maya stood, summoning what strength she had left. No excuse, sir, she said firmly. I did what had to be done. A heavy silence settled over the area. Soldiers stopped to watch. The weight of the moment thick in the air. Maya didn't waver. She had accepted the risk the moment she turned that ignition. General Harrison stepped forward, studying her in silence. His eyes swept over the bloodied vehicle, the medics, the battered survivors. Then, slowly, he raised his hand in salute. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, he said, voice clear and firm. You have embodied the core values of this unit, and of the United States Army. We do not leave our own behind. One by one, soldiers, privates and officers alike followed suit, saluting her in turn. Even Colonel Matthews, after a pause, added his own salute. Silently acknowledging what everyone already knew, that sometimes, true duty means going beyond the rules. 3 months later, Maya stood straight in her formal dress uniform as General Harrison pinned the silver star onto her chest. The citation was read aloud. For acts of conspicuous bravery under fire, Staff Sergeant Maya Rodriguez went above and beyond the call of duty, risking her life to extract 7 isolated soldiers from hostile territory under direct threat. Her courage and sacrifice bring great honor to herself, the U.S. Army, and her country. Walker sat in the front row, fully recovered, flanked by the 6 others she'd saved. Their presence meant more to her than the medal itself. They were proof that it had all been worth it. After the ceremony, Maya stepped into a new role training communications specialists. Before a group of eager recruits, she explained what it truly meant to be on the other end of a radio. Comms aren't just about passing information, she told them. They're about understanding the meaning behind the words. And sometimes, they're about knowing when silence needs to be broken with action. Later, in the mess hall, Walker found her. He eased into the seat across from her, his limp barely noticeable anymore. The new kids can't stop talking about you, he said with a smile. You're turning into a legend. Maya shook her head, visibly uncomfortable. I just did what was necessary. No, he said seriously. You went beyond that. You reminded us what service really means. He hesitated. I never properly thanked you. We owe you everything. You'd have done the same, she replied quietly. Walker nodded. I'd like to believe that. The next morning, as Maya introduced herself to another fresh class of recruits, Walker stepped into the room. Listen up, he addressed them. This is Staff Sergeant Rodriguez. When everyone else turned away, she answered our call. When they said it was impossible, she made it happen. This is what real courage looks like. That evening, Maya walked alone to the memorial wall. Her fingers brushed over the carved names, those who had never made it home. She paused at an empty section space, where 7 more names might have been, if she hadn't acted. She turned away, not in mourning, but in quiet resolve. Back at the communications center, she put on her headset once more, the same way she had that day, still listening, still watching, still ready, because sometimes the most powerful command doesn't come from the chain of command at all, it comes from within. That voice inside, that says, this matters more than rules. This is worth risking everything. No one gets left behind.